In order to create a new batch with Production Plus software, the user should click New button. Here the user can enter the name of the new batch. By default, the name is set as date and time. Inside the batch, the user can set a default order or modify it with customer code, job code, deliver date, and correction date. Inside the order, the user can set one or more default items, or the user can modify a default item with new properties, like article name and quantity. In order to create a standard list, the user should add one or more profiles to default item with clicking New button. Here, the user is able to select the brand, the system, and the profile code. After selecting brand, system, and code, the user is able to select the color of the profile, then the length. After selecting the length, the user should set the angles of the piece and the quantity. Additional data can be set in the Label Data window. The user is able to add more than one piece with more than one quantity to the list. Different angles and different lengths can be selected. Also, the user can select a different profile. When the list is completed, the next step is the optimization. At the moment, the user added 35 pieces to the list, but we don't have the measures of the bars. Clicking Optimize button, the list will be optimized. So the software will calculate the minimum number of bars necessary to machine this list. For every bar, the user can see the number of pieces on that bar with all the properties. Expanding the single bar, the user is able to view all the single pieces. After optimization, the user is able to print a report of the optimized list and also the labels. The report will show the bar summary, the piece summary, and the optimized list. The user is able to print the report and send it to production workshop. After printing the report or the labels, the user is able to export the list to the machine by clicking the Export button. Export format by default is XML. Production Plus software is able to manage items. Items are created by the user in the library by selecting Items button. As we can see in the Articles archive or Items archive, I created already a folder called Windows. Inside the folder I have F2A, which is my first item created. Inside this item, by expanding it, I can see a list of pieces already created, simulating the creation of a window. For example, we have first piece, brand FST, system R72TT, and the profile code. The user can select internal color and external color and can apply a formula for the length. Also, the user can apply the left angle, right angle, and the quantity. If I double-click on F2A, which is the name of the article, I can see the variables which I created for this current article. At the moment, I created L and H, which is length and height, with a default value. The catalyst of this window specific is a 2 wings window. So I created this list with 5 different pieces with their quantities. After creating all the pieces, my article is ready and I can use it how many times I want. In order to call an article in the batch, I just have to select my batch, and inside the order I click plus button. New item windows pop up, so I can select F2A, which is my article I just created, and confirm it. Then I have to apply the length and the height to the variable of the article. For example, if my window is 1 meter and 200 length and 1 meter and 400 height, I just have to select the variables and confirm them. Before confirming, I can also select the quantity of the archive I want to add. F2A has been added to my batch. I can see that all the length has been commuted to the value I insert in the item window, and the quantities and the profiles are already set. If I want to add a different item which is pre-created, I can select F3A and I can add length and height as well. If I want finally to add another item with different variables, I can select F2A again, confirming, and apply, for example, default variables. But I have to change the name since the item is different from the previous one. Another important function of Production Plus is the possibility to import a list from external file. In order to import a CSV file created with another software or by the user should only click Import button and select Import Part List. CSV file format is brand, system, profile code, colors, length, angles, trim cuts, barcode, labels, and quantity. Opening CSV file format. A list of pieces is already created with the correct angles, lengths, and quantities. After importing the file, the user should only optimize the list and proceed with report and export. Production Plus software is able to manage more than one machine at the same time. In order to add a new machine, the user should launch Library and click on Machines. For example, assuming I want to add another cutting machine, I click on Add button. I give the name of the machine, for example, Kiopi. I select the machine model in the list, and I select the machine software. After selecting the software, I'm able to select the CAM path of the software, if it is on the same PC. If not, it's not mandatory to select it. More important is the database path. Default folders are C, from software, FSTCAT4 in this example. I'm able also to select a working list export folder and to synchronize the database on confirmation. Now, Production Plus imported all the profiles inside QP machines and all the parameters. Managing more than one machine is very important. For example, if I open Library again and go to Profile window, I will show how to manage different rotation for the profile, switching by different machines. For example, QP machine will cut this profile from the bottom, so this position is correct. But if I switch to Blitz machine, which blades are from the back, here I have to rotate the profile in order to select the correct machining position. Production Plus will save the rotation and will link it to the machine. So if I switch back to the QP, the position didn't switch. But if I go back to the Blitz machine, the position is correct again. This is very useful because if I create a list with this profile and I export it for Blitz, this will be the cutting position. But if I switch again to QP, the exported profile will be considered in another position. So the cutting length and thickness of the profile will be saved correct. At the same time, I can add more than 2 machines only. I can add as many as I want, both machine centers, lines, and cutting centers. If I'm using a CNC machine, Production Plus is able to read all the macros created on the machine. By selecting Library and opening Macro Archive, I can see all the macros created on the machine. Of course, I can insert all these macros inside my list, linked to the pieces. For example, For this piece, I created two macros for the lock. So, if I create a list with this piece, clicking plus button after selecting the piece will let me add one or more macros to the piece. For example, I can select the macro, I can set a position, and I can confirm it. I can still modify the length of the profile after applying a macro. I can still modify the angles. And finally, I can also apply other macros. I can also apply macros with formulas. For example, selecting the same macro, I can write LP minus 100. This means that my secondary macros will be added in the end of the profile 100 from the bottom. So finally, I completed my piece. In the same way, I can create as many pieces I want and finally export them to my machine. Production Plus software is able to manage variables and macros also inside Items library. By selecting Library and clicking on Items, you can see that I created a sample item containing some variables which are numeric variables for height, length and handle, and text variables for order and customer names inside the pieces. I also added a macro inside one of the three pieces of this sample item. If the user wants to add more than one macros to the item, it should only click the plus button and selecting which macro to add in the same way as the list. Inside a sample item, the user can manage all the variables, numeric variables, text variables. Inside the piece, in the label data, the user is able to apply one or more variables to the info fields. Going back to the batch, if the user clicks Add to add a new item, selecting Sample Item and confirming, the user is able to add all the custom variables I already created. For example, the height could be 2100, the length could be 800, the order can be 123, customer name could be generic company, and the handle height is 1000 and is fine. Confirming it, I added the sample item with 3 pieces with the macro already applied to the correct position indicated by the handle variable, and all the variables are in the correct spot. It is also possible to load a CSV file with a list of articles with all the data like colors, description, quantity, and variables, just like for an ordinary list. In order to add a CSV file with an article list, just click on Import and select Article List. My CSV sample file, CSV protocol for items, is composed by code, quantity, colors, external color, internal color, and then all the variables. Opening the CSV, all the items have been added to my list with the correct quantity, with the informations about the cuts and the length, with the macros in the correct position according to the variable, and as many articles as I have in my list. For every article, all the variables changes of course. After importing my list of articles, I can only export them to my CNC.